What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical, average American here today to react and learn about what Reddit thinks about the UK. So today, I want to take a look at this Reddit discussion where somebody asked, how is the UK viewed by the rest of the world? And I thought this would be a very interesting discussion to take a look at and hear what people all over the world think of when they think of the UK. So let's take a look at some of the top comments here, starting with the UK is the largest supplier of Independence Days to countries around the world. Wow. Um, I can't say that's an inaccurate statement, can you? That is a funny thing to think about because so many countries were part of the British Empire. I've just never heard it phrased like this. The UK is the largest supplier of Independence Days. It's thanks to the UK that so many countries, like the United States, that we celebrate an Independence Day from Britain. Um, that's not, funny enough, that's not necessarily what I think of when I think about the UK. I think of like UK, maybe stereotypical sort of culture, like an accent or some of the food or tea or stuff like that. But that's funny. This is actually really interesting for me from an American point of view. Because, yeah, there's like so many countries that have an Independence Day from Great Britain, and I've never really thought about that or their point of view. Yes, the most studied modern day country in history books. If you talk about history, you're probably talking about the UK, the single largest exporter of the most spoken language on the planet. Wow. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, man, it must actually be super interesting growing up in the UK and going to history class growing up. Because, man, what do you learn about every single country or territory that was part of the British Empire? Or that's actually really interesting to think about. Because the history of Great Britain is so big. Anyway, we're getting a little derailed here. What is what does Reddit think about the UK? This is good stuff. Like 90% of the world only view the UK as London. Oh man. I feel like I've heard this a little bit before, and I also feel like this is something that annoys British people a bit. That when a lot of foreigners from other countries outside of the UK, such as Americans, a lot of us, when we talk about the UK, yeah, sadly, a lot of us are talking about London, but I mean, it's really a whole mess. Most Americans don't even know what the UK technically is. I know that sounds really crazy. This is like the first video I ever did on this channel, ever. You can go check that out. Go to my videos, go to the very first one. I think it was about the learning the difference between the UK, Great Britain, and England. Because I, like most Americans, I used to think that was all the same thing. But there's obviously a very specific difference between the UK and Britain, but also the fact that we don't know the difference between England and Britain. That's embarrassing. But I personally like understand that now, but most Americans don't. So if we don't think of the UK as London, a lot of us certainly think of it as England, which I know must be kind of frustrating for the rest of the countries in the United Kingdom. Anyway, this is true for the rest of the world, huh? This is not just like ignorant American stuff. That's good. Sometimes it feels like 90% of London views the UK as London. What? Really? A girl in Portsmouth once asked me if we have bears up north. I'm from Manchester. She was. I have no idea. This is too UK for me to understand. I don't know where Portsmouth is, or if you have bears. I barely know about Manchester. Okay, let's keep moving on. Moving on before I expose even more of my lack of knowledge. What does Reddit think about the UK? Judging by most of these comments, the UK is viewed as England. No surprise there. Yeah, I don't know if people in the UK know this. I think a lot of you are aware of this. That a lot of Americans, that's for sure, think the UK and England are interchangeable terms. Yes. I didn't know that the rest of the world thought that. This is Reddit. It doesn't necessarily encompass the entire planet's view of the UK, but Reddit, the internet, you get a pretty wide range of opinions from a lot of different places. So I'm inclined to believe this. Also, because it makes me feel better that it's not just Americans who think this. The UK is viewed as England. England is viewed as London. London is just viewed as parts of Leicester Square, excuse my pronunciation, Covent Garden, Houses of Parliament, Buckingham Palace, Trafalgar Square, London Eye, Tower of London, Tower Bridge. So it's like kind of sad in a way because it's true. London is just a victim of its own success. It is such a freaking popular, famous place. When Americans think of our bucket list or places we want to go before we die, London is the top of that list for a lot of Americans. Even though if you're in London, you're in the UK and you're by a lot of really, really cool stuff. But a lot of Americans don't really even think about that, sadly. This is true. This is what Reddit thinks about the UK. It's kind of sad in a way, acknowledging some of these misconceptions, but I think this is accurate stuff, to be honest. Oi! Is this just the answer? What does Reddit think of the UK? Oi! I've heard oi. What exactly does oi mean? I think it's a way to get someone's attention, like oi! It also sounds like you're in pain or something. Oh my god. Ignore some of these ignore some of these comments, my god. I lived in the UK for a year, but much of their culture is still strange to me. What is this Mr. Blobby monstrosity? Mr. Blobby. Mr. Blobby? Oh my god. I feel like I saw this in a video a long time ago of disturbing UK children's characters. Mr. Blobby is originally featured on a British Saturday night variety show, Noel's House Party. Is this what people in America? This is not what we think of when we think of the UK. Thank God. We'd be terrified, having nightmares. This is from someone who actually lived in the UK for a year. And your culture is still a mystery to them, especially Mr. Blobby. He's a mystery to me as well. That's interesting. That's our prime minister. We don't talk about him. You know what? I do think the UK and Britain, when people think about that, they think about a good sense of humor, British comedy humor, just like that comment. That's a good example of that. That should be on this list. What Reddit thinks about the UK. I can only talk about what Americans think about the UK. I'm actually hoping to get some more opinions in this discussion outside of Americans, but for Americans, it's British humor, tea, fish and chips, accent, That very it's almost sort of surface level stereotypical things. Not that it's untrue though. Like you do have an accent to us. Um, you do have these British foods. You do drink tea. It's kind of a strange set of things that we have chosen to focus on, but they do exist. That's my defense. Teacups, very pale skin, Mr. Bean. Yeah, okay. That's a nice little man. It'd be so funny to hear what people in the UK think about this. Like when you hear stuff like this, like what your culture, what your country is known for, and you hear teacups, pale skin. Mr. Bean, that's a compliment. I have seen a little bit of Mr. Bean now, a couple clips. That's an amazing character, amazing performance. That's a compliment. Yes, everyone here in Britain is some variant on Mr. Bean. Really. Let's keep going here. The further down we go, I feel like we're gonna get some interesting comments going. Stella, kebabs, and punching? What is Stella? There are multiple matches for Stella in the UK, including a beer brand, a TV series, and an insurance company. Well, in America, I've heard of Stella, like Stella Artois. Yeah, a beer. That's the only Stella I know. It's a TV show? Insurance company? That's definitely not what they mean. The beer, I think? Kebabs, which is a food? Punching? Are people in the UK punching each other? This is a night out in Manchester, basically. That's so good. I love the little responses from British people in this discussion. Just a bunch of kings eating fish and chips. Maybe. Does the king enjoy fish and chips? Maybe that's like a prerequisite of being the king. That's another good one, though, that I actually forgot about, embarrassingly. When Americans, and I guess people around the world, think of the UK, we think of royalty. We used to think of the Queen, now we think of the King. I think the Queen was really like the last pivotal global figure. Like she was so well known, so loved, so famous. Her image, she was like larger than life itself. That used to be maybe like that was synonymous with the UK, the Queen. The King now, I have to admit, a lot of Americans like we don't talk about King Charles. No disrespect, but not like how Americans used to reference the Queen. You used to hear some references to the Queen. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. How that really isn't even a reference anymore in America. No one really talks about British royalty like that. Interesting. That kind of just shows how big a figure she was, I think. And of course, eating fish and chips. The best feeling is when it's raining outside, so you go down to the seaside, you get some fish and chips, and you just eat them in your car. It's the most British experience I've ever heard. um, let's keep going here. Scroll down. Growing up in the USA, Brits always came off as proper, high class. Yes, very true. Then I moved to Thailand and I met a lot of Brits. Some of them, some of the most amazingly vile things I ever heard came out of a man with a Cockney accent. Oh my God. Is that the key? That their Cockney accent? This almost sounds like admiration in a funny way. Cockneys are bloody filthy. Oh my God. It's been 11 years. When I think of the stories he'd tell and the words he used, I still crack up laughing. That's funny. What are some more things? What does Reddit think about the UK? I'm starting to form a picture here. A very scattered, random picture. Like my aunt, says she's about to leave. Then she hangs around chatting for the next 5 years. This can happen in America too. Is this common in the UK? Is it always your aunt? Um, okay, Europe, we're heading out, but I've just got to talk to you about dot dot dot. This is where you need like the social cue, where you're trying to leave someone's house and you slap your legs and you go, "Welp," and kind of stand up. That's how you get away. That's how you. Isn't that the universal language for that? I love the UK. Pub culture is great. Pubs, yes. Um, that's such a big part of UK culture. But funny enough, it's not really something Americans think about all that much. I don't know why. It's like we haven't been exposed to that somehow as much as some of the other British cultural things. Um, but I've learned a bit about pubs in the UK, and it's a really cool part of the culture. British humor, sarcasm is my favorite. Yep, I agree with that. I like the people. I like the Premier League. That's football. I'm just overall a fan. Personally, I didn't think Brexit sounded good. Okay. A lot of us Brits didn't think it sounded like a good idea either. Brexit, do people think of Brexit when they think of the UK? Not in America, at least. Most Americans like haven't even ever heard of Brexit or don't know what it is, and at this point are too scared to ask. I am Indian. We have two views. Tyrants that ruled our country for 200 years. Wow. And two, nice people who love asking us questions about our culture, country, and religions. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of overdue. Not all these comments are going to be positive, I suppose. So the UK ruled India? I'd have to learn about that. I don't know anything about that. This person like says as tyrants, like in a bad way. But also is very complimentary, saying people in the UK are very nice and love asking questions. Any more info on this? Only 200 years? Right, maybe your food is the root for our national food. Curry, I think. Ask anyone here, and the best British food is Indian. I've heard about curry in the UK and how that's huge. Um, I don't know too much about this India Britain history, or if it was bad, or as it sounds there, or what. I'd need more clarification on that. I read a while ago that the UK is a nation of functioning alcoholics. Oh God. Oh, pretty much. Oh my God. We had an intern from the US come for work after drinks. He didn't show up for work for 2 days. Oh my God. The funny enough, in America, the UK isn't like known for drinking necessarily. Even though I keep hearing that's a huge part of UK culture, drinking, pubs, merriment. The UK is a normal country to live in. Brexit was stupid. London has an expensive housing issue. Doctor Who is great. Some people binge drink enough for books to be written about it. The NHS is great but underfunded. Interesting. These are more like specific. The average American doesn't even like know about half of this stuff. Like whether the UK is okay to live in or not, what Brexit was, that London is, I would assume London is expensive, like any big city. Doctor Who, there's a lot of Doctor Who fans in America. I'll give you that. The drinking, the drinking, or the NHS, the National Health Service. I know a little bit about British healthcare. Sounds a lot better. Okay, I think with that, that's pretty good. That's a little snapshot of how the UK is viewed by the world, or at least the people of Reddit. That was actually quite fascinating for me to hear about. I hope it was fascinating for people in the UK to hear. I hope that was kind of interesting as it was for me to just see the generalization, like what people think when they think UK. I find that stuff to be very interesting. Like, what's the top of the mind for people? The takeaways they have. So anyway, if you enjoyed this, feel free to give this video a like or leave a comment with your thoughts on any of these, this discussion on what people think about the UK. If you thought this was a fair analysis or totally wrong, that'd be fun to hear about. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to the UK and learning about UK culture, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching and see you next time.